My brother's new wife had no idea I owned the house they lived in. "You're a pathetic 40-year-old Leech. Get out," she shouted. I burst out laughing. "Try to make me." She called the police, but when they saw my deed she had to leave. Hey Reddit. My name is Rachel and I'm 40 years old. I never thought I'd be labeled a leech in my own home by a woman I barely knew, let alone my brother's new wife. But life has a funny way of testing your patience, your dignity, and sometimes your property rights. The house they were living in, the one I was supposedly leeching off, had been mine for over a decade, paid in full, no mortgage. The pink deed, signed and notarized, sat safely in my locked drawer upstairs along with some old birthday cards, a faded photo of my mom, and the last letter she ever wrote me. That house wasn't just a property. It was my sanctuary, my history, and my legacy. Let me take you back a bit. After our parents passed away in a car accident when I was in my early 20s, I used my inheritance, modest but meaningful, to buy that house. My brother Jason was only 18 at the time and still finishing high school. I let him live with me rent-free while he figured his life out. I paid for his college textbooks, helped with job interviews, and even bailed him out of one bad credit card mess in his 20s. I never asked for anything in return, not money, not loyalty, not even a thank you. That was my mistake. Fast forward to now. Jason recently got married to a woman named Vanessa, a woman who came with sharp eyebrows, sharper opinions, and a voice that could strip paint off a wall. They'd been dating barely 6 months before the wedding, and from the first moment she stepped into my home, something told me she didn't quite grasp her position in the food chain. At first I chalked her behavior up to nerves. She would side-eye me in the kitchen, move my things without asking, and call my vintage couch outdated with a laugh that never reached her eyes. I stayed quiet, trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe she'd settle in, but she didn't. She only got bolder. 3 weeks after their wedding I noticed changes. My personal mail was being opened accidentally, she claimed. My coffee mug went missing and then reappeared with a chip in it. She took over the guest bathroom and converted the second living room into her home yoga space, complete with incense and a Bluetooth speaker that blasted terrible whale sounds. But the real cherry on top. She began introducing my house to guests as their house. I overheard her say it multiple times, "Yeah, Jason and I just bought this place. It's cozy, but we'll renovate it soon." I was stunned. She hadn't even asked if I was okay with them hosting guests, let alone misrepresenting the property ownership. Still, I didn't say anything. Maybe I should have. Then came the Tuesday evening. I just returned from work, tired and drenched from an unexpected downpour. I kicked off my heels, shaking the rain from my coat when I heard it. "Get out. You're a pathetic 40-year-old Leech." I froze mid-step. Vanessa stood in the hallway with her arms crossed like a bouncer at a bar. She was furious, her cheeks flushed. Jason, as usual, stood off to the side like a shadow, silent and awkward. I blinked. "Excuse me. You heard me," she sneered. "This arrangement is done. It's time you got your own life, Rachel. Maybe a tiny apartment or a retirement condo or something." I blinked again, trying to register the audacity. "This is my house," I said slowly, emphasizing every syllable like I was speaking to a child. "No, sweetie." She shot back with a condescending tone that made my skin crawl. "This is where we live now. And frankly, I'm tired of your weird little routines and your thrift store decor. Pack up your stuff and go." Jason looked at his feet. Not a single word from him. I let out a laugh. A loud, startled, belly-deep laugh that echoed through the hallway. "Try to make me," I said, smirking as I walked past her toward the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water, wiped rain from my face, and took a deep breath. She exploded. Within minutes she was calling the police, dramatically pacing the living room and saying things like, "This woman is refusing to leave my home and I feel unsafe." I honestly didn't know whether to laugh harder or start filming. Jason still hadn't said a word. I looked at him, my little brother, my freeloader turned traitor, and all I saw was a shell of a man with no spine. When the police arrived, they were professional and polite. Vanessa met them at the door with her crocodile tears and shaky voice. "She's been living here without contributing anything and she won't leave," she cried. "We need her gone tonight." One officer turned to me. "Ma'am, can we speak with you privately?" "Of course," I said, leading him upstairs to my room. Once we were inside, I opened my drawer and pulled out the deed. Still in its envelope, still in my name, I handed it to him. "This is my house," I said calmly, "bought and paid for years ago. Jason and his wife are staying here with my permission, or they were." The officer read through it and nodded. Thank you, ma'am. When we came back down, Vanessa was still mid-rant. She turned expecting handcuffs or at least some authoritative scolding thrown my way. Instead, the officer looked her square in the eye and said, "Ma'am, I suggest," blinked. "What? You're not the homeowner. You're a guest here and the owner has made it clear you're no longer welcome." Her jaw dropped. "You can't be serious." "Jason, tell them." Jason stammered. I thought the house was in both our names now." I turned to him, a cold, bitter laugh escaping my throat. "You thought what? You never even paid for a light bulb in this place. How could it be in your name?" Vanessa's face turned red, furious, humiliated, confused. She stared at Jason like he betrayed her, then spun on her heel and stormed upstairs to start packing. I watched the whole thing with a strange sense of calm, not because I wanted to see her suffer, but because sometimes people need to be reminded of the reality they tried to rewrite. And this was far from over. Vanessa slammed cabinet doors upstairs for the next 20 minutes like it was going to change anything. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, ignoring the chaos. The officers lingered briefly before one of them stepped aside to talk to me privately again. "Do you want her out tonight, or are you willing to give them time to pack and leave within the next day or two?" he asked. "I'm not cruel," I said, though my voice probably didn't sound very soft. "They can have until tomorrow evening. I just don't want another scene like this." He nodded, then quietly let Vanessa know she had until the next evening to vacate. The look on her face was venomous, not just rage but disbelief. Like she couldn't comprehend that the world hadn't been to her version of events. When the police left, Jason finally found his voice. "Rachel, come on. Can we just talk?" I looked at him long and hard. "Talk?" "Jason, I've been waiting for a single word from you for weeks. You let your wife insult me, lie about my house, and try to throw me out like garbage. And all this time you stood there with your hands in your pockets like a lost kid." He winced. I didn't know what to say. "You say the truth," I snapped. "You stand up for the person who raised you when mom and dad died. The person who let you live here rent-free while you got your life together. That's what you say." He sat down slowly across from me at the table, rubbing his face like he was finally waking up. "She told me this house was too small for us. She said I should talk to you about selling it and moving. She made me feel like if I didn't agree with her, I'd lose her." I shook my head. "And what about me? You are willing to risk our relationship for someone who disrespected me in my own home?" He didn't respond. Just stared at the tabletop like it held all the answers he couldn't find. Vanessa came stomping back downstairs with 2 bulging suitcases and a glare that could cut steel. "I'll be back for the rest tomorrow," she barked, not looking at me. "You'll call ahead," I said firmly. "You don't come in here without permission. That window closed the second you tried to throw me out of my own home." She opened her mouth to say something, probably another insult, but Jason stood up before she could. "Vanessa, let's go." His tone surprised me. It was the first time in weeks that he sounded like himself, like the younger brother I once trusted. She looked like she wanted to argue, but something about his expression made her pause. She huffed and stormed out the front door, muttering something about lawyers and "this isn't over." I didn't even flinch. When the door shut, Jason lingered. "I don't know what's going to happen between us," he said quietly, "but I don't want to lose you." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But wounds like these didn't heal in a day. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "But I need time, and you need to think long and hard about the kind of woman you married." He nodded, then followed Vanessa out. That night the house felt heavier than usual, not just because of the silence, but because I finally allowed myself to feel all the weight I'd been carrying, the betrayal, the disrespect, the heartbreak. I didn't cry. I just sat there curled up on my couch, the same one Vanessa mocked, and let myself breathe for the first time in weeks. The next morning Vanessa showed up with her sister to collect the rest of her things. She didn't speak to me. I stayed upstairs until they left. I had nothing more to say to her. Jason didn't come. He texted me later that day to say he was staying at a motel for a while to figure things out. I didn't reply. I wasn't ready. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2. And one morning there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Jason standing there with a duffel bag and a box of pastries from my favorite bakery. "I don't expect you to forgive me overnight," he said before I could speak, "but I'm not going to pretend like I didn't screw up. I chose the wrong person to stand by. I see that now." I looked at the pastries, blueberry scones, my favorite. He remembered where's Vanessa. I asked not to start drama but because I genuinely didn't know. She's gone, he said. Filed for separation after I told her I wasn't putting up with her behavior anymore. She called me weak, told me I let my spinster sister manipulate me. That was the last straw. I didn't flinch at the insult. I knew it wasn't about me. I stepped aside and let him in. You've got a lot of work to do, Jason, if you want to rebuild this. I know, he said quietly. He moved into the spare room. Not as a free guest this time, but as a tenant. We drew up a proper rental agreement. No more unspoken generosity. It was time for boundaries. Over the next few months we slowly started healing. He cooked dinner sometimes. We talked more, really talked about mom and dad, about mistakes, about forgiveness. He started therapy. I saw a counselor too. It helped more than I thought it would. As for Vanessa, she didn't come back, not even once. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she moved to a condo on the other side of town and started dating some real estate agent. Good luck to him. One evening months later, Jason and I were sitting on the porch watching the sun dip behind the trees. He looked at me and said, "Thank you for not giving up on me." I smiled softly. I was close. I know, he said, but I'm glad you didn't. We sat there in silence, and for the first time in a long while the house felt like a home again.